So Sachs, the Fed is obviously, it's pretty much consensus they're going to do another 75 basis points later this month. Could be 50 basis points, who knows? There seems to be a couple of people saying that that might happen. If that does happen, and it feels like inflation is starting to top out, do you think inflation, starts to turn? Or do you think we're still going to see prices go up? Because it does feel like it was starting to bounce along the ceiling. What do you think is going to happen if the 0.75 happens?
You're seeing the market rally today in the last few days, especially growth stocks, because of this idea that the Fed is tackling inflation, they're raising rates, and the market is looking out 6 months and seeing the possibility of recession. And they believe that is going to bring down demand and bring down prices. And it could. I mean, what I just described would be a soft landing. I just am skeptical there's going to be a soft landing because of what Chamath is saying, which is this is a multi-part problem. And until we fix the supply side, I don't think that merely reducing demand is going to get us out of this.
I really agree with you.
It's a production problem. It's a demand problem. And it's also, as we just talked about a few minutes ago, an employment problem, because the businesses that need to grow, right, that need to generate revenue cannot get the businesses that are dependent on people to do service jobs cannot get those jobs filled. And so they cannot grow their revenue, cannot make their profits. And there's a trickling effect in the economy of that, what we talked about, that kind of job shift, that job market shift that's happened. So all three are just this like dislocation that's happened.
Totally right.
And it's unclear, someone very smart I was talking to yesterday, who's a former member of an administration, said, there's literally no way to predict. We just don't, because think about the complexity of throwing 3 rocks in a pond. How do those 3 rocks interact and how do the ripples interact is really what we're trying to predict. And it's very hard to do.
I mean, if you translate this into the markets for 1 second, I think what we've done since November of 21, and Nick, you should play this clip because, not to say, we didn't see this coming, but we really did. We pointed to, one of our friends and somebody else that we kind of know, Bezos and Elon, and we said, when the 2 smartest capital allocators in the world start divesting, they clearly understand and see things that the rest of us should pay attention to. And to ignore it seems reckless or
Let's play the clip. And we'll be back in 30 seconds after the clip.
The 2 most important founders of our generation, the 2 smartest people who have really consistently won, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, have collectively sold more than $11 billion of their holdings this year alone. And if you can't take all of that and decide for yourself what's right for you and your family, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think it's important for me to never sort of like be forced to tell folks whether I'm buying or selling, although I'm willing to do it in moments where I think it's important. But I think it's really important to understand the context. And so I think like these folks that like think derisively about individuals who are managing risk, I think it's really naive. And I think it creates a lot of missed opportunity for them as well. If the smartest people in the world are now selling their core holdings that they told you they would never sell, and you are not reconsidering your position on things, you're either much smarter than them or you're being really, really reckless.
That was November, and at that moment, I started a bunch of things in process, which we can talk about at the end, but I also sold a bunch of stuff.
The Warriors position.
I started a process at that point, and I sold a piece in December, and then I just sold the last piece this week. But then, I sold a big piece of SoFi in that moment. But the point was more the following, which is since that clip to today, what we've gone through is a massive re-rating of the discount factor of these companies, assuming nothing else changes, right? That's all we've done. We've not questioned whether earnings can change. All we said is, okay, well, now we're going to take the discount rate up, which means the value of this company is less than it used to be. That's all we've done through all of this wealth destruction that's happened since November. But now the second shoe has to drop, which is if you believe that after this supply side issues are resolved, you go through a demand destruction phase, the earnings of these companies are in real trouble. And Jason, you posted something, I think, about the social media companies and ad rates.
Advertising is going to get hit, right? So one of the first things to go in a recession is advertising. If you're going to belt tighten at a company, where can you do it? Well, you lay off employees, but you can't get out of your leases, as we talked about in real estate, but you can cut your spending on marketing. And so right now, it's looking pretty bleak for Facebook because of the headwinds they have. So the earnings could drop, which means
and by the way,
price to earnings ratio could be totally flipped
talked
if
about
the earnings are not real, right?
Well, we talked about that. We talked about that over the last few weeks, which is every time the market rallied, oddly, Facebook would be stagnant or trade off. And, when I called people on Wall Street, what they said was because, we think this is the company that has the most pressure on earnings. I don't know if that's true or not, but they took every opportunity in rallies to trim their position in Facebook. Now, if that's true, you have to remind yourself that is one of the 10 best companies in the entire world. And so if you're going to go and question the earnings power of one of the 10 best companies in the world, you may want to consider the earnings power of every other company that's not Facebook.
There are some unique things to the Facebook story. They are facing a unique disruptive moment with Apple ankling their ability to target users. Supposedly Google might follow suit with that, which would be super anti-competitive. And also the surging TikTok taking market share from them.